In this Planet Coaster 2 tutorial, we are going to talk about the scenery brush. In my opinion, the most underused and most powerful tool in Planet Coaster 2 that is nobody talking about. So we're going to take the time. I'm going to show you some very nice techniques and tips and tricks how you can utilize the most of this wonderful, powerful tool. Let's begin with the first one, and that is actually the pretty standards of the scenery brush. So let's bring up the UI and go to the scenery brush. You find this one down here, or you press 9 on your keyboard, or on console you just click through until you are in the scenery brush. So we're going to first of all talk about the UI. Pretty simple. So you do have the presets of Planco 2. You can click this menu open, so you have a better overview of all of them. You get quite a good amount of things for different biomes we have. So you've got a couple of rocks over here. We do also have a couple of bushes, you know, if you want them. And we also have quite a lot of things to just talk about the basics. So first of all, as soon as you click into a menu, and I'm going to use these wonderful temperate small plants because they do showcase the best. Now, we do have a couple of options. As you can see over here, you can change the size of your brush. You can also do that with you know, something on your keyboard. I'm not entirely sure if I know exactly which. Yeah, that's how you do the shift and that key. And what the heck is this one, by the way? I don't even know what. Oh, that's that one. Okay, so I didn't know exactly what's on my keyboard because that looked so fancy. Anyways, we do have these kind of different things to do, and as you can see, there is also an intensity slider over here, which makes sense. This is just how intense it's going to be placed down. So if we have the lowest size and the lowest intensity, you can see this is how it works. Still pretty damn strong, but we'll get to that, why it is so strong, because if we go into edit, you'll find out why. Anyways, this is the one you want to look at. Then you have align to surface. What this does is very simple. If you disable this one, you will see that now we can just click that, but they are kind of hovering on this thing like so. If you click align to surface, you will see now, oops, okay, well, actually, the team at Planco did something wrong over here. I'm going to show you in a second. Usually what it should do is it should align to the wonderful terrain you place down, and to showcase that this actually works, I'm going to use my brush for that. This is the timber mountain shrubs I have over here. And now first of all, let's say avoid align to surface, and you'll see it still does because I have a certain settings. Now you can actually see it's just kind of does this one. And now if we go and turn that on, you can see that they perfectly align to the wonderful terrain you build over here, which is pretty good. And this is how it looks a lot more realistic, by the way. Now, the reason why it doesn't work with the Frontier one is, I'm going to show you. Let's go back to the brush. Is because there's also the edit option down here. Also, you can see scenery. You can either ignore them or avoid. Now, if you click avoid, obviously there is scenery over here. If I go over, then you will see it does avoid the building. You can even see this slightly highlighted over here, that it doesn't go in here. If you click to ignore, and then you can see it brushes fully over. Okay, so that's pretty simple, and you do get the outline once you're in the brush, which is pretty cool, but it gives you the idea where the building is that the brush is going to ignore. But now you do also see the edit brush down here. If we click on that, you can see these are the different ones that are in-game. We can't change this one apparently because it is an in-game brush, but if we go into the settings of these things, you can see there is a couple of things they have said. And also here you can see random rotation is jaw. We get to the settings in a bit, but there's also align to surface, and they have this on off, which, because this is off, you can basically do whatever you want with this one over here. It won't happen, okay? So this option is only valid if in your settings you have, first of all, set this to on, and then this one switches it on and off in the main menu, which is always very helpful. Okay, now this is actually everything you need to know about the brush as it stands. This is the very simple method of using it. You can use then different sizes over here. You can create the intensity higher. You can make the size higher. Very much easy, you know. And you can apparently later on select your things. Just a little tip on this side, just deactivate all the filters. And then you go to nature, because nature is most likely what you have. And then you can only select the nature, because sometimes these are not in a group, you know. If you click on them, they're single items. And if you want to change the group. So what I like to do with rocks, for example, is I like to just select them and ever so subtly want to move them. Oh, wait, I did have them building now. Hold on. I'm not sure why I did also select this as a nature, whatever. So there we have them, and then sync them in ever so much slightly to make it look a bit more realistic. But yeah, so this is the This is the main things you need to know about the tool itself. Now let's get into detail what you can do with it and why I find this so insanely powerful. Number 2 on the list is layering, and layering is, in my opinion, one of the most important things I've not really seen a lot of people do. You can see a very, very weird example over here, but we'll build our own one right now, okay? So you see how a brush is done as promised, and you can see what I mean by layering. So first things first, we're going to create a brush, and we're going to say custom create a new brush, and this is going to be the tutorial 1. And we are going to add an object, and what we're going to do, we first of all go to the nature stuff, and what we're going to select is, we're going to select something low growing, okay? I want to go with the hardy ice plant. Let's go with the 4-meter one, it's the rather big one. And then we are going to also say in the settings, and this settings menu over here is really important, okay? Because you have settings for every single piece you put into your brush. First of all, let's go to the random rotation. You can have this to your jaw or all. With jaw, this means it's always going to rotate around its own center axis, but it's not going to rotate in any other axis, which is for 90% of what you do, the way to go, because you don't want to have all of a sudden trees lying the wrong way around or so. If you've got jaw activated, you can also go into align to surface, rotation to surface. This is very important because you need the alignment to some nature stuff here and there, so you want to click that on. You can still deactivate that, as you've seen in the menu, if you don't fancy having that one. But in general, this is something you need to go. And then we've got a fun thing over here with the minimum and maximum scale, just as the object spacing. This is something you really want to play with a lot and also get creative, because this is what changes a very basic from a very good brush. Now, what we are doing a brush now for different layers, okay? So what I want to have is a very tiny layer for the lowest ground. And so I'm going to paint this in, and I'm going to say 50 to 70. I want to have them small, okay? And the object spacing should be super low because I want them to be very close together, simply because it is the ground shrubs, okay? So we created that one, and then we create a second one. I want to have some bushes on top of it, okay? I don't want to have this fully. So what I'm going to go for in this case is a bracken, actually, because I feel like they are pretty neat indeed. And so we're going to change this to bracken. And in bracken, we also go to jaw, align this rotation on, and we're going to put this to 50. And I want to have very small bracken indeed, so 60. And the spacing can be a little bit bigger. I don't want to have them super close to each other, so gonna 3.4, it doesn't really matter. And now what I want to have is some trees in this list, and we are going to go for some very simple trees. Let's see what we can use. Let's use some of the European ash tree small, that's fine. So we're gonna click that one on, again, jaw and a rotation surface on, and I want to have some, yeah, not too big, not too small trees, something like 70. And now I'm gonna put this on a way higher point because I don't want to have the trees super close to each other. So that's what we did over here. And we're gonna save the changes, okay? So then we say done, and our brush is done. As you can see, there is the brush. Also, a little recommendation from my side, you will always have the first thing as an icon. I wish to be able to set an own icon, but you know, that's what it is. And what we do now is we're gonna go and set the size down to, let's say 8 meters, which is the lowest I had set for, actually it was 9 meters, but that doesn't matter. And I'm gonna say align to surface, yes. And then we can paint this, okay? So what you're gonna see now is how this kind of creates. As you can tell, this is a very nice method of doing it, but there is a problem to it. Now, you need to use a lot of space to kind of create it and keep on brushing. There you can see it. It takes a while. So what I recommend to do is split those two brushes apart, you know? Do yourself a favor, go in and let's edit this one first of all, and we're gonna kick the tree out of it, okay? We're gonna delete the object, we delete the tree, and what we do instead is we're gonna take ourselves a second bush or something, maybe something blooming, maybe something with some flowering. There you go. Let's put some flowering stuff in, and then we're gonna edit this as well to be very small indeed, and it should be not too often. Let's do something like that, on and jaw. So that's fine, we have that one in. Say done. Oops, first of all, save the changes and done. And we're gonna create another brush, okay? So we're gonna say create new brush, and this is gonna be, whoops, tutorial 2. Don't worry, the other parts of the video won't be as long, but this is very important so you understand the basics of the brush. Now, we're gonna say brush object, and this time around we go to tree, and we're gonna take our European ash tree again. We set the settings to exactly what we had before, something like 70 to 90. And this time around we can keep it to 5 meters because we have more control over it. So what you could also do is, like, if you want to have something alongside the trees, maybe something to break the mood a little, you can also go to some lower stuff again and say, why not some lady fern in here? And then we're going to create the lady fern, going to make it very small and very condensed in a way. And going to say yes and save the changes. So you've got 2 different brushes now, tutorial 1 and 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to first of all use the tutorial 1 and we're going to paint this to the ground. So you can see now you have a lot more control over it. We can increase the intensity and lower the size to be even more precise in certain spaces. And then you've got a very nice low ground field over here. So you can see this is creating some very nice meadows. As you can see, some improvements would be to get into the icy plant and make this a bit bigger, because otherwise it doesn't cover the ground fully. So what I like to do then is I just go back to the brush. We haven't selected the one now, so let's go first of all to tutorial 1. Edit the brush and we go into our first icy plant, and what we're going to say is, let's say 70 to 100%. And object spacing is already on the lowest, that's fine. Okay, save the changes. And now if we brush over, you can see you easily kind of close these little areas off. Okay, nice. This looks like a very nice meadows over here. Very neat indeed. So what we do then is we go to the tutorial 2 brush. And now we're going to make this a lot smaller, like so. And we're going to increase the intensity so it does paint the trees. And now you can paint the trees on top of that. Now, obviously, I've gone a little too small over here and raised the intensity. So maybe what I want to do is this way. And so you have a bit more control over where you want to put them. You know, you can also just click in here. And the good thing about this is you now have full control over. You can also see some of the lady fern. Maybe in between here, maybe you can see that. Sometimes if you just brush over the same area a couple of times, it'll create more of the lady fern other than that. And you can easily then go in and delete some of the trees you don't want. And then you just layered your stuff. In this case, I would be lacking some actual bushes now. So what I would do now is create a specific bush brush that goes in between and just kind of paints in a couple of bushes here. But I think for the main idea, this is clear, and so you can utilize that to create different layers and make it look a lot more interesting from very the ground, have some bushes. I mean, also bracken wasn't the most clever choice over here, but you know, it's for the showcase. So that is meant by layering. So make sure that you use the best of your brushes. Don't make a brush for everything. Make a brush for bushes, make a brush for trees, make a brush for large trees, make a brush for forests, you know, whatever you want. I also made like this one over here, as you can see. This is like a dense forest to cover the backgrounds, you know. I always like to do this way. And that should be this one over here, dense spruce, how it's called. And as you can see, they are super dense, and you can quickly just paint like a line of trees, and it just kind of blocks off the background. This was just like for the background. Realistically, you never have it that way, but in order to cover that up, I then used brushes in front of it with some bushes, so you don't see the lower part, and it looked like a very dense forest. And behind that, I didn't need to put anything. So that's all the idea about the layering. Number 3, my friends, is special pieces. Well, you can see I have some snow over here. Well, technically it's not snow apparently. This is just some decals that I've been using. Now, let me just quickly show you something. If we go into the scenery brush, you can see I have a whole bunch of different brushes over here. And one of them is actually snow. That one over here, called snow. Now, if you go in, you can see I'm painting and painting and painting. And these are just very, very nice decals that kind of create this very much snow effect. Also, it looks even like a bit of dirty snow, which I do really like. However, there is a problem to that. Now, if we go into editing the brush, you can see I used a couple of these scenery pieces and I set them all to some very weird spacings, but you cannot change the color. This is also a very nice technique in order to make some nice ground, like if you want to create some moss below here. It's a bit of an issue, you know, because you need to be a bit more clever in the utilization of that. Now, what you can do is use this kind of scenery brush, and what you can do then is just paint all of this area, go to multi-select, select them all, and then very important is that you deselect the building again, which I think it is deselected. No, it is selected right now. I'm wondering why, because that technically shouldn't be any, let's do it that way. Okay, well actually this is not, I get why, because this is scenery. So that should be it. No, it's building pieces. It's always a bit of a tricky thing what it is at the end of the day. Hold on. Let's first of all see right, pool, path, extra facilities, scenery props, apply to filter. Oh, I did select them. Oh my god, I didn't see that. I did select them because the outline is missing. Okay, so let's deselect that one. And now you've got all these scenery items over here selected. Now, if you go into color, you can then change the color apparently. Now, one thing I want to highlight really, really importantly is that there is a bit of an issue to that. Now, as you can tell, the color isn't really changing that much because of the way this decal works over here. So in order to make something nice looking, you could then, and I'm gonna get rid of these, they're also very piece heavy. So if you're on console, I would not really recommend doing these kind of brushes, but we can easily create a new brush and we're gonna select some decals in here. And this time around we use moss. Not gonna change too much of the settings because for the showcase, it should be obvious. Now, I'm sorry. You can see this is how it then creates this. Now, we don't want that. This is very odd. So what we're going to do is decrease that one, say this, and we're going to say jaw and that one, and save the changes. And now you can see this looks already a little better. Now, you can see the color isn't really great. You select them, you change the color, and you can make that whatever, try to fit better to your kind of grass area here. Just got to figure out what kind of green tint that is. Somewhere in here should be fine. Whatever, you know, you could then have that below your growings and that would actually look a lot better. You can apparently now also use a different type of brush. So for example, we use the, let's say we're gonna use a bracken on top of it. Oh wow, that's a little bit too crazy, but yeah, you can get the idea. It has that nice little mossy appeal down here. It's not really tidy what I'm doing, but I guess you get the idea. But you can obviously go further with that. Now, what I'm also recommending is test yourself and find out things. Now, what we're gonna do real quick, we're going to make sure that we have a path laid out. So we're gonna go and make a bit of a square path. Also, let me just do that in asphalt. There you go. And you know what? I'm just gonna make that gray real quick. So here we go, and just create a gray area. So hold on, that's fine. Now what you want to have sometimes is, this looks way too repetitive and way too tidy and so on. So what we can do is go to scenery brush, edit a brush, or actually create a new one. I'm gonna call this one decals concrete, just so we have it. And then I'm gonna type in decal again. And apparently, as you can already tell, we are going to use all of these over here. I'm not sure if I am clicking the correct ones. You can also have some of those, you know, again, I have some, or I did do some very good ones. I lost them. I don't know why exactly. I think I did this in a save game and forgot to save that one, which is a pity, and I will redo them because this is a very cool technique. Now, once you place them down, you can see it doesn't work, right? Because we have, oh, wait, save changes, done. We have avoid path on. You definitely need to click that off, and now you can paint them over your path. Now, you can see the problem. They are now in green. Now, why are they in green? Well, I don't really understand exactly how it works. So I figured that sometimes the last color you had is then the setting for the brush color. But it also does not really work this way exactly. So if I go for decal, for example, and I'm going to place this down, you can see now it's green. If I'm going to say it is going to be, let's say, gray, hold on. Just make it gray because that's exactly the color we need. Just copy that one more time, okay? And now we're going to create a new brush. And we're going to select exactly this piece again, just to showcase, okay? So should be that one. And now we're going to paint this over here. You can see it now has the gray color too. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't even know what happens if I click in the other ones now. If it, for whatever odd reason, oops, always clicking the same here, keeps the same color, which would be a way to go, but I would love to Frontier that they would be able to change that, because apparently this is only one color now. Oops, again, save changes and done, and also say smaller size. Now, you can obviously then paint this on top of here. Whoops, first of all, do this, and you can paint that on top. And all of a sudden, you have all these wonderful decals on your path without actually having to work for them. Now, what you can see, I did not activate the random rotation, which is always a bit of a big deal. Now, let's get rid of all these things. First of all, say apply this and delete them. Now we go back into the brush, edit the brush. And now what we need to do is, first of all, just do that with all of these. It's a bit of a finicky work, but once you did it, it is such a great way to save time. And oops, there you go, and there you go. Now we've done that, and now you can see it just creates that wonderful natural look. So apparently you would need to you would need to change this then a couple of times until you're happy. And what you could also do is now go over it, apply this, and now change the color. And you can then ever so slightly say, you know what, I just want to have it a bit brighter so they're a bit more obvious. There you go. Fine. That is just what you need to have, okay? And this way you can do some very fancy stuff with the decals. I will utilize this technique in my Hanseatic Dreamland quite a lot. There are some cool ways of doing some tricks with it, also making sure that everything looks nice. And you've now seen how to change the color prior to doing your brush. It's a bit of a finicky one. You could name them now with the color if you want to, but I feel like you get the idea. Number 4 on the list is going to be something very interesting, abusing pieces. Now, we've done this already here with some decals and so on. That was all pretty normal stuff. But now, let's do something fancy. So I also figured you can create brushes with virtually anything, you know? And we're going to call this one Pebbles. Just as a note, this is going to be very piece intensive. So I wouldn't recommend doing that in your packs if you don't have a good computer. It's just showcasing what you can do. Now let's go to market. There you go. We've got the marketplace decoration 14. Now we click this one and we're gonna say rotation yes, and we're gonna make them small and small, and we're gonna make the object spacing very tiny. Now we're gonna save the changes and we say done. And now let's have a look what happens once I make the size very much small. Look at that. Look at what's happening over here. So you've got these little apples, okay? The problem is they are a little bit too small to really make it work. So what you can do is increase the intensity, but it doesn't really change much. It looks a little bit odd, right? Now what we can do, we can edit the brush and we're gonna increase the size of these things significantly. It doesn't really matter because they're still going to look like very nice little apples. So gonna save the changes, say done, and brush over that again. Okay, so it still doesn't look crazy, does it? No, it doesn't. Okay, so I'm gonna increase the size. There you can see it. Now, what's the beauty of this is, let me just show you. Now, if we go over and select all of these, we can change the color, and we can change the color to something like, let's say, this, for example. And now you can sync that in a little, and you get this really cool little appeal, like as this is maybe some pebbles and so on. Now the problem is still that you're having the issue that they're a little bit too, well, still too far away from each other. So this is a little bit of a showcase where you need to test around until you're happy. So, whoops, that's happening the wrong. Oh my god, that was the wrong one. I'm sorry. Let's go to this one. There you go. And we say size goes all the way down to 2 meters, and you can paint and paint and paint, and it won't happen too much because there's always like this spacing in between, and they seem to have like these predefined slots where they go in. So what you would need to do then is just make sure that you add, sometimes you can add the same piece in. Unfortunately, they have fixed that. It's a bit of an odd one. You could do this before and then you trick the system, but as you can see, it doesn't allow me to do this again. But you can still increase the size a little bit. Let's say like this, for example. Save the changes, hit done, and we are getting even closer to each other, you know. Still not where we need to do, and then we just change that again, okay? So until we're happy with it, let's go all the way up now. So that should do the trick, and then change to that, and say there. You always need to paint new, as you can see, and this is now where it is actually starting to become fun. You can not really paint over where I've been. It's a bit of an odd one why you can't, honestly, but okay. So I'm gonna delete all of these now because we want to change this and check this out how it works, because there's a little trick involved here to do this, to make this look really nice. So what I like to do is I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna first of all use the, hold on, where's the snow? There you go. Just first of all paint some snow down here. Actually, it stays white, so we can't use snow. Never mind. Let's not go for snow. We're going to go for I think we're not going to do this anyways. We're going to go to the pebbles right away. So we're going to use the pebbles, and we're just going to make this over here. There you go. And I also had one set up for some smaller stones lately. Small stone. There you go. And we're going to make this work as well. say select the surface and put some stones in between. Now the problem with the stones is if you select these pieces now, you can easily do so and then just say deselect the nature stuff, and then that should be fine. There you go. And now you can align the color of these things with your stones if you want to. So also make this a bit more nice into that direction. There you go. Apparently you could now use the stones that we... Oops, why did I not do this? There you go. Confirm that one. So let's do it that way. And now you can sync this all in a lot more. And you could then do the same with the nature pieces. Oops, let's go back. I'm still wondering why the building is always selected, but anyways. And gonna, oops, that was both. So let's say that one, apply to filter, and then go down. Look at that. So this looks not really perfectly fine, but now if you go in and you say, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna make this a bit more sandy. And then you figure, okay, the pebbles, I don't really like how they're looking. You can then go in and just select everything again. Make sure that you have the right thing selected. So in this case, scenery, yes, nature, no. Apply the selection. You can then also finally create a group out of it to not always need to select them. I was stupid. And then you go into the group, select everything, and try finding the color that really matches what you want to do. So in our case, we want to be very much aligned with the sand over here. Let's find a good sandy stuff, make that a little bit more like so, until you found kind of a color that you like, and then you can also move this down if you want to. And then you could also just select that again and rotate this a little to make it more. This is just a showcase, okay? It's not the best technique in the world, but I just wanted to show how you can utilize that. You could also go in now, as I have done this in one group. You could, you know, just select the whole group, copy that over. Let's see if I can showcase what I'm going to do. There you go. And now you click one group, select them all, and slightly alter the color a little bit. You know, maybe even more than a bit. So here you go. It's a bit too repetitive, but now you can see where it's going, okay? You can now see where it's going. We could also get rid of the other stones real quick, because they seem to make this not look as great anymore. So what we could do now is just go and copy that one more time. Rotate this a little bit more. Go a little bit more up if we want to. Oops, I did set this. So here you can see where this is going. And just try to get this up a little. Click that one, go into the group, and alter the color ever so much slightly. There you go, make this a bit darker. And there you can see some very nice pebbles down here on the beach. And if you now kind of spread some normal stones in here and just make some scenery next to it, it's all of a sudden going to look good. I mean, just going to show you with some brushes real quick, because that one is the easiest way to go. So you could easily go and say, we're going to have some timber mountain shrubs over here just to the side. There you go. You know, making sure that this looks nice. And then we can just put some tropical stuff in here too, just a bit of mixery. And then what else do we have? We've got some ash trees. Put one, maybe here. They are a bit too dense, to be honest. Let's put them there. There you go. And it looks like a very nice little cozy beach area. Again, you know, you would need to just kind of try to move certain things down and up, just as you wish. But you get the idea. You can get very creative with this brush. And apparently, you can also utilize everything that you want. You can also go in and say, hold on, do we have like a box or so? Okay, that isn't... Let's put in sci-fi because they have these crates. Cargo crate. So let's make the cargo crate very small, indeed. Spacing. And then we go to all. In this case, we go to all. Save the changes, hit done. And now let's see what happens. You can make like some cargo stuff if you want to. Like this looks like as if there's like a crash site or so. Really enjoy that one. I really loved how that all works. So yeah, this is very neat indeed. And let's go to the next one. Last but not least, number 5 is going to utilize pathings. And this is going to showcase how you're not going to do this. So here you can see how it is going to work at the beginning if you have never played with these things. And this would happen because if you go to scenery brush, there is the option we talked about already, avoid path. However, if we go to the normal temperate small, for example, and we're going to move this in, you can see it still goes relatively hard into our pathway. Now, the reason for that is relatively simple, and this is going to be the most advanced brush we are building today to showcase what we can utilize it all for. Now, we've got this wonderful pathway over here. Now, as we can get rid of the curbs, things are going to start to be very much more simple. You have to understand how the game calculates to avoid the path. Now, if we are willing to just take ourselves a decal, for example, because we need to have the decal in the correct color anyways, we're going to select this one, and now the center of the piece, the center of the piece is actually the definition point. So you can see this over here, there's the center, that's where the piece would stop to go further. That's where it stops. However, part of the piece, and depending on the rotation, is quite a lot already into that. And if you have selected a bigger size, you can see it goes almost halfway in. That's not what we want, okay? We want to be more precise with that. So let's go all the way smaller. And we are going to use this one as a test over here. This color is actually pretty damn nice already, but I want to make this a bit more sandy. Let's see that we can make this a bit more sandy. So that fits a little bit the style more, but we need to be a bit more in the green. Green grass. Huh. Yeah, this is actually a bit more like dried out grass. How much does this change? Okay, actually, you know what? We can use that one as sandy color, as a sandy appeal. And then we're gonna make this one, try to make this one be as close as possible to our grass color. Hold on. Hold on. It's actually, sometimes it's harder than it looks like. So there you go. This is a lot more. And then also we need to make this one adjusted a bit more. Yeah, something like that. It doesn't matter. I want to just have this as a little bit of a test. Also, you know what? No, we need to have it more in the greens. There you go. It's fine. It's fine. Let's use it that way. So we've got a bit of a grass over here. Maybe we need to do this a little bit less still. Yeah, a bit more. Wait, hold on. Need to... Or we make it fully sand. We can also make it fully sand. And then we've got some sand to the side. It's also good. And then make it go a little bit into the grassy color, as if there's a bit of grass in here. Yeah, why not? Let's do it that way this time around. It's a bit more visible. Okay, so we've that one over here to the side to explain what it goes. Now, if we do, as I said earlier, if we do our normal brushes, whatever you have over here, got a fake grass, for example, it's gonna paint into our pathway anyways. We don't want that. So we're going to create ourselves a new brush. This time around, we're going to say decal, and we're going to use the moss piece I just had over here. I'm going to select another one to have a bit more versatility in, and we're going to make them both the smallest possible, and obviously to draw, and smallest spacing as well. The same goes with this one. Everything set to the smallest. Very important, everything set to the smallest. Save changes, done. Go all the way to the smallest here too, and increase the intensity. Now, what this does, as you can see, is you get very close to our border over here, as you can tell. Now, this way, you can then start painting very much closer to your pathway. I'm very much confused right now why this has such a spacing. They definitely did change something about this. This wasn't happening before. So apparently we need to increase the size again, which is a bit of a pity because that increases the likeliness of it going into the path. But we'll get there, we'll get there. So we say done, and we're gonna paint this over again. Hold on, you need to just get rid of these things first. Apply the selection, and this is apparently only nature. Is the scenery props? Is that why? Hold on, why can I not? Building pieces maybe. Hold on. Okay, now that's fine. Delete them. Okay, so we go back to the scenery brush. Hopefully this one is gonna let us do it now. Sometimes a bit of a trickery, but hey, you know, we're gonna go here and we're gonna go to our brush. There it is. And we're gonna say align to surface on, size a bit bigger, and now paint this. Yeah, that's a bit better. Now you can see we're getting closer to a pathway, but not as close as you can tell. So this is very neat and very helpful indeed. It's a bit of a little problem that we can't really paint too much over. We would now need to go and make them even bigger to really paint over, but it's fine. We can do the rest basically by using some sand maybe in between to make it look a lot nicer. So here we go. That's nice and just kind of blends in ever so slightly. And what we do next is we're going to use our brush we had earlier. So we are going to utilize the custom brush tutorial 1, we have created earlier, because that one is very helpful indeed for us. So we're going to use that one. But now what you want to do is keep this within the limits of the perimeter of the outline, as you can see. Don't paint over here, just paint over here. And now you can see it still goes in a little, and you need to be a bit more careful even. And then you paint around here. So it still blends in, but with the utilization of these wonderful pieces down here, it just makes a whole bunch more sense. But what you can do instead to make it even better is we increase the size earlier on, right? So we're going to edit the... Why is it always... It just should keep the one we had select latest. Then we go edit, and we need to decrease the size of these things again. So that way, it's going to help us, hopefully, to make this all better. And we're going to decrease the space between these things a little to make it all better. Save changes and say done. And again, try to be careful in the painting. And now you can see this is working wonders, okay? So we're getting closer, but not too close. Sometimes you can brush over a little. So there you go. And now, if you have that, you can then also get more intense with the brush in the back. I'm going to use another one from mine, because otherwise this is going to take long. We're going to use the Timber Mountain shrubs, because they are pretty nice indeed. So you can then go into making some bigger ones here. And then apparently what we're going to do next is we're going to use our tutorial 2 one with the trees. Paint some trees in. And look at that, you've got a wonderful, very beautiful sideline of your pathway. Again, it's even better now because we don't have the curbs, and it looks fantastic. And what you can also do, and that is a very fun bit indeed, you can apparently now, if you don't like it this way, you can now utilize the delete tool and then draw tool. And then you can also, if you like this, for example, very much, you can also just go in, edit the pathway to your liking on this side, just bring that over here a little so I have more space, you know. And then you can apparently just kind of go in with the delete tool and use the new delete function to basically just delete around the kind of planters if you fancy. I mean, you can also just do it that way, and then just try to be as precise as you want to and just cut out this thing, and boom, all of a sudden it's fine. And then you can, you know, use the roundness tool to just kind of make this a bit more nice looking. So that way it's also very simple to just make sure, first of all, paint the nature and then make that accordingly. But I like this technique a lot more. So hopefully that was helpful to understand the full power of the scenery brush. There is apparently a lot more you can do with it, so if you've got very nice ideas what you can do with the scenery brush, let me know in the comments down below. But I wanted to highlight how powerful this is. Sometimes it's a bit of a finicky thing. Frontier also changed a couple things along the way. I would certainly love if we have full control of the colors of the items within the brush, inside of the brush, and we don't need to do this hassle bit with, like, you know, selecting the color before creating the brush and then having that brush set to this very color. But you can tell that you can do a lot of great things. Make sure to use it the way it is intended to, but also make sure to become creative. Also, the only little one thing you may want to, you know, think of is that it is very piece intensive if you're playing it the way I do. So sometimes it's very much highly recommended to, instead of making crazy stuff like that, you could then also go and increase the pieces inside of the brush to 300% to have less pieces for coverage reasons. So specifically when you do something in the background of your park, you can always go and utilize the 300% because it doesn't need to look super detailed. Just go to very much detail in the foreground, and the further you go to the background, make sure to use bigger sizes to decrease the amount of pieces. Anyways, hopefully that was very helpful for you. If it was helpful, my friends, please consider subscribing to the channel. That's the easiest way to support, or use the super thanks, which is the most direct way to help a creator. And if so, you can do that. I'm very thankful for that. Or just share the tutorial with anyone else you think this may be helpful for. I will create more tutorials in the future. If you have some specific questions about Planet Coaster 2, make sure to drop them down in the description. Not in the description, you can't edit that one, but in the comments down below. I'm going to consider making a tutorial about that one too. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.